So, welcome. Just jump in and get started here. So, in 2021, the American Institute for Research found that suspension is a largely ineffective strategy to improve student behavior, academic performance, or school climate. And we know from multiple studies that students of color and students with disabilities experience disciplinary actions at disproportionately higher rates. A study through the University of Pennsylvania found that suspensions for any reason, including nonviolent infractions such as using profanity or classroom disruption, are tied to lower scores in math and reading language arts testing. And that negative effect increases with each day of suspension. While intended to promote safety and address misconduct, suspensions often disrupt learning and can have lasting negative effects, particularly for students with disabilities. If you're looking for ways to collaborate with the school to keep your student in the classroom this year, you're in the right place today. Our presentation this afternoon is tailored to parents of children with disabilities living in Minnesota. So if you live in a different state, your laws may vary. Please note that we're not attorneys. This training is not intended to serve as legal guidance regarding your child's unique circumstances. For legal advice, we recommend that you consult a qualified legal professional. At the end of our presentation today, as Jamie mentioned, we're hoping to have time for Q&A. So if you have questions, please put them in the Q&A box at the bottom of your screen. And we ask that you keep your questions general rather than specific to your child's circumstances, just so it can benefit everybody who's participating. Next slide.
All right, and I'm going to tell you a little bit about PACER Center. So PACER Center is the Parent Training and Information Center for the state of Minnesota. We are a trusted source of information, training, and support for families of children with disabilities. Our services here at PACER help families and youth navigate special education and other complex systems, discover assistive technology solution, and access bullying prevention resources. We're the only organization in Minnesota that provides the type of support for families of children and young adults with any disability from birth to age 26. And it's important to know that all of our services are provided free of charge to Minnesota families. Next slide. And I'm going to start by introducing myself. My name is Sarah McGinn. I'm a parent advocate and trainer here at PACER Center. I've been here for about a year and a half now. Prior to coming to PACER, I worked for 10 years as a paraprofessional, and most of those years were spent in elementary, but I also was in preschool. I am the parent of 3 young adults, if I round up my last one, and navigated special education services and 504 plans with one of them. And through that experience, I came to PACER because I wanted to help other parents understand options and how to use that special education process to really support your student in the school system.
My name is Jeannie, and I have been at PACER for coming up on 4 years now, I think. I'm the parent of 2 now young adult kids who are on IEPs. So I have navigated these processes also, as have most advocates at the PACER Center. This area in particular was one that I experienced with one of my kiddos on occasion. So I can definitely relate to the stress and the challenges that parents experience in this area of suspension. All right, next slide. So we'll start today by providing a brief overview of state and federal school discipline procedures for students with disabilities. Then we'll move on to talk about how you can apply your insights and ideas to advocate for your child. And we'll spend most of our time there on talking about how to advocate. So by the end of our session, you'll be able to define suspension, recognize obligations of the district when they suspend your student, and develop effective strategies to advocate for support that your student needs to remain in school. We won't have time today to cover expulsion, seclusion, restraints, or other disciplinary topics. Our focus for today will be on suspensions. Discipline policies for students with disabilities are complex. We know that learning about district obligations and your rights on these matters can feel overwhelming, but today's discussion is a vital first step to empower your advocacy. Next slide.
Okay. Can the school suspend my child with a disability? This is a question that we often hear from parents who are calling PACER. Children enrolled in preschool through third grade cannot be subject to dismissal under Minnesota law unless the program has first utilized non-exclusionary discipline strategies and there is a serious safety threat to the child or others. For older students with disabilities, suspension is permitted but must follow specific guidelines. All students are required to follow written behavior policies that are determined by your local school board. This includes students with disabilities. Your district's behavior policies can usually be found on the school website, or a copy can be obtained by asking your principal. If a student violates one of the district's rules, the consequences outlined in the district policies may be implemented. Advanced slide, Jamie. In Minnesota, in these blue rectangles, suspension may be imposed for these following reasons: willful violation of any reasonable school board regulation, willful conduct that disrupts the rights of others' education or ability of staff to perform their duties, or willful conduct that endangers others or destroys property. Next slide.
So, how do we define suspension? In Minnesota, suspension is the temporary removal of a student for no more than 10 school days under rules passed by the school board. The removal must be consistent with district-wide school discipline policies that we talked about earlier, which address when a student can be removed from class. For students with a disability, any removal from a student's regular education setting for half a day or more is considered a suspension and must be reported as such. As in school, an in-school suspension would not count toward the 10 days of removal as long as the special education student is afforded the opportunity to continue to appropriately participate in the general education curriculum and continues to receive the services specified in their IEP. So they must still follow the IEP. If your child is temporarily removed from the bus due to behaviors and transportation is included as a related service in the IEP, the school district must find alternative transportation for your student to attend school during the bus suspension period. If your child's IEP, behavior intervention plan, and crisis plan, in this case, those must be followed by the bus driver and school support staff. If bus transportation is not part of your student's IEP, a bus suspension is not considered a suspension. In this case, the student and parents have the same obligation to get the student to school as a non-disabled student who has been suspended from the bus. However, the school should consider whether the behavior on the bus is similar to behavior in a classroom that is addressed in the student's IEP, and whether your child's behavior on the bus should be addressed in the IEP at that time or in the behavior support plan. All right, next slide.
Jeannie, I think you had a headset on earlier. Would you be able to try that again? We get one attendee saying it's hard to hear, and it is a little hard to hear when you're talking.
Okay, yeah, it wasn't working. So I had the
Oh,
headset on and it wasn't working. That's why I put it on to make sure it was loud enough. So I will try to speak closer to my laptop and see if that helps. So
all righty.
thank you for letting me know,
Mhm.
Jamie.
Yep.
All right. So next slide. Take it away, Sarah.
Okay, here's another common question that we get here at PACER. What if the school is asking me to pick up my child early from school? Early dismissals during regular school hours should be recorded as an illness, injury, or suspension. Advanced slide. A dismissal for one school day or less is counted as a suspension if the student with a disability does not receive regular or special education instruction during the dismissal period, whether the school refers to it as a suspension or not. Parents of students with a disability sometimes receive a call from the school saying that they are not formally suspending your student, but are requiring that you pick them up early. If this occurs, ask that the school record the early pickup as a suspension. Advanced slide. What do you do when you are asked to pick up your child early? You can see this information on the slide, but I'll read them for you. Sign them out at the front desk, citing that the school has required you to pick up your child due to behaviors as the reason. Use your phone to take a photo of your sign out entry if possible for your own record keeping. Follow up with a call or an email to the IEP case manager or 504 coordinator to gather more information about what happened. And you could also email the school to create documentation that you were required to pick up your child due to behavioral concerns to confirm your understanding of what happened. Keep a copy of this as well for your record. And in certain situations, you might choose to pick up your child early when a staff member calls to say that your child is having a difficult day. You might make this decision if you feel that the remaining time at school may cause your child undue stress. However, going home early is not an ongoing solution. When your child isn't at school, they are not learning, and also they're not developing the skills that they might need to make progress. Frequent early or other dismissals due to behavior suggest that the strategies that is currently being used to support your child at school may not be meeting their needs. Dismissals are a signal to the district to reassess how they are supporting a child at school. Next slide.
So every district must have policies in place that focus on preventing dismissals through early identification of a student's needs and emphasizing non-exclusionary practices designed to address behaviors from recurring. So advanced slide, Jamie. These strategies might include one or more of the following. Initiate evaluation. So this might mean an initiation of the evaluation of a student for a 504 plan or for an IEP if a disability is suspected. Repeated behavioral incidents may be an indication that a disability hasn't yet been identified or isn't adequately understood by the school. Requests of the school discuss the development of a behavior intervention plan and a crisis plan if needed. A behavioral intervention plan, sometimes referred to as a behavior support plan, is a proactive plan that addresses changes which may need to be made in your child's school environment to support success and how the school will help your child learn skills for emotional regulation and communication that help them participate effectively at school. A crisis plan is used in emergencies when a student's behavior poses an immediate threat to themselves or others. It outlines specific steps, communication procedures, strategies for support that are tailored to your student's needs, who to contact in an emergency, and which school personnel will participate in implementing the plan. So de-escalation strategies. Explore and try different de-escalation strategies. The school must consider that not every strategy works for every student. So they can talk about alternative ways to support your student when their emotions overwhelm them. Another strategy might include your child's participation in a social emotional learning group, sometimes referred to as SEL. SEL programs help students develop skills to understand and manage emotions, establish and maintain positive relationships, and make responsible decisions. Another option, school-linked mental health services. This involves a collaboration between schools and community mental health providers to offer mental health services in the school setting. School staff might also try utilizing a collaborative problem-solving approach. This strategy is rooted in the belief that children want to do well, but may lack the necessary skills, such as flexibility, tolerance for frustration, and problem-solving skills. Instead of relying on rewards or punishments, this approach emphasizes understanding triggers and collaborating with children to identify emotions, explore solutions, and develop self-regulation skills with the support of a trusted adult. Restorative practices, when used correctly and in appropriate circumstances, can be a powerful way for schools to help students address conflict through relationship building, listening, developing communication skills, and restorative interventions rather than on relying on punitive measures. Trauma growth practices, sometimes known as trauma-sensitive practices, acknowledge the impact of trauma on students, recognizing the need for safety, connection, and understanding as foundational to learning. Increasing communication and collaboration with parents empowers the team to proactively address behavioral concerns, before they escalate into disciplinary actions. Schools can also provide targeted training to equip teachers, paras, and other staff with knowledge and strategies needed to effectively support your child's unique strengths and challenges. Next slide.
Okay, now we're going to answer the question of what must the district do when they suspend my student? So districts must follow specific procedures when they suspend a student. Before suspension, a school administrator will meet with the student to share the grounds for suspension, explain the evidence, and allow the student to share their version of the facts. If it appears that the student will create an immediate and substantial danger to the student or to the surrounding people or property, this conference may take place after the suspension. Parents do not have the right to attend this conference. Some schools want parents at the conference, or they may set another meeting with parents to talk about the child's behavior. The district must also provide written notice that includes a reason for the suspension, a brief statement of what happened, what your child and any witnesses have shared about the incident, a readmission plan, and a copy of the document called the Pupil Fair Dismissal Act, or the PFDA, which outlines your child's rights when facing dismissals from school. And I just want to draw your attention to the slide. If you have a phone, you can take a picture of this QR code and it will bring you right to a copy of that Pupil Fair Dismissal Act that you can save for yourself. The written notice must be given to your student before or at the time of the suspension. The school must also mail a copy to you within 48 hours of this conference. The district must also make reasonable efforts to notify the parents of the suspension by telephone as soon as possible following the suspension. If the student is suspended without an informal administrative conference on the grounds that they will create an immediate and substantial danger to surrounding people or property, the written notice will be served to the student and parents within 48 hours of the suspension. Next slide.
So what happens when your student is suspended? Schools must provide alternative education services for your child if the suspension is longer than 5 consecutive school days to ensure that they continue to participate in the general education curriculum and progress toward meeting their IEP goals. Alternative educational services may include special tutoring, online instruction, home instruction, supervised homework, or special education services for students on an IEP. The school must allow a suspended student the opportunity to complete all schoolwork assigned during the suspension and to receive full credit for satisfactorily completing the assignments. Your child has a right to return to school when the suspension ends. The school may not impose consecutive suspensions against your child for the same incident, except in situations where the student will create an immediate and substantial danger, or when the school is in the process of initiating an expulsion. Even in these circumstances, the total suspension period is limited to 15 consecutive school days. The suspension readmission plan cannot require a parent to provide medication or give consent for mental health screening as a condition of the student's return to school. Next slide.
What does it mean when the school invites me to a manifestation determination, sometimes referred to as MD? A manifestation determination is a special meeting that must take place when the discipline of a student with a disability will result in a change of placement or expulsion. A manifestation determination is a special meeting that must take place within 10 school days if a child with a disability has been suspended for more than 10 consecutive school days in a row, or if they have been suspended for more than 10 total school days in the same school year for substantially similar behavior, or when the school is considering expulsion. You might ask who attends a manifestation determination meeting. In this meeting, it will be attended by a school administrator, relative members of the student's IEP or 504 team as determined by the parent and the district, the parent, the student, and at least one of their teachers. Parents can invite individuals who are able to provide relevant insight to the student's needs, such as a therapist, advocate, or even a family member. You might also have a question about what is going to be discussed at a manifestation determination meeting. The purpose is to determine if your child's conduct was caused by or had a direct and substantial relationship to their disability, and if the behavior in question was the direct result of the district's failure to implement your student's IEP or 504 plan. So you can see these two questions that team is working to answer on the screen right now. The behavior must be determined to be a manifestation of your student's behavior if the district, the parent, and relevant members of the IEP team determine that the conduct in question was caused by or had a direct relationship to your child's disability, or the conduct in question was the direct result of the district's failure to implement their IEP or 504 plan. And in order to make these determinations or answer these questions, the group may review some of the following information or data. Information that was related to the incident, evaluation data, the student's current IEP, IEP progress notes, or even the 504 plan if that student is receiving that type of support, the behavior plan, which Jeannie referenced in an earlier slide, school discipline records, staff and parent observations regarding behaviors in related circumstances, relevant information from outside providers such as a neuropsychological assessment, if the parent chooses to share that information, and any other information that the school or parents believe should be considered related to the child's disability and its unique impact on that student's behavior. So what happens if the team determines the behavior is a manifestation of my child's disability? If this is the case, the school cannot suspend or expel them. In this case, your student will be returned to their prior placement unless the team determines another placement is more appropriate. If the behavior was not previously addressed in your student's IEP, the IEP team must review and revise the IEP to provide services and supports that are appropriate to their individual needs. They must conduct a functional behavioral assessment, also called an FBA, to identify underlying reasons for the behavior that occurred. Following an FBA, a positive behavior support plan will be developed to support your student and help them build and practice new skills. If a behavior plan is already in place, the group will review and revise it as needed to enable that student to make progress on those skills. Implementation of behavioral strategies in a student's IEP are appropriate even if the behavior is a manifestation of the student's disability. This is intended to ensure that your student has the supports, services, and opportunities for practice that they need to develop the skills to successfully meet expectations at school. And if the behavior is not determined to be the result of your child's disability, the school may impose disciplinary procedures to the student with a disability in the same manner and for the same duration as would be applied to students without disabilities. However, your student must continue to receive educational services to enable them to continue to participate in the general education curriculum, to progress towards meeting IEP goals, and receive an appropriate FBA and behavior interventional services and modifications designed to address their individual emotional and behavioral needs. These services may be provided in an interim alternative educational setting as determined by your child's team. And in a manifestation determination, if the parties can't reach an agreement about whether that conduct was a manifestation of the student's disability, if you, the district, and the relevant members of your child's IEP team are not able to reach that consensus, or whether your child's behavior was or was not a manifestation of the disability, the district must make the determination and then provide you with a prior written notice, also called a PWN. In this case, you have a right to file a complaint, request mediation, or request a due process hearing to resolve the disagreement. We'll talk more about these options later when Jeannie talks about advocacy. And if you receive a request from the school to attend a manifestation determination and would like to speak with an advocate, that is a great time to reach out to Pacer Center. Next slide.
So are there times when the school can unilaterally suspend my student? The school can place your student on an interim alternative education setting for up to 45 days, regardless of a manifestation determination, if the behavior was related to possession of a dangerous weapon on school property or at a school function, possessing, using, selling, or attempting to sell illegal drugs on school property or at a school function, or inflicting serious bodily injury to another person, while on school property or at a school function. The term serious bodily injury is defined as bodily injury which involves a substantial risk of death, protracted and obvious disfigurement, or protracted loss or impairment of the function of a bodily member, organ, or mental faculty. An alternative education setting may be another school, home, or online instruction, or other alternative settings. The interim setting must still provide a free and appropriate public education to your student. The district must provide the opportunity for them to progress in the general education curriculum and toward their IEP goals, while also addressing the behavior that led to the removal. Next slide.
What if I disagree with the school's suspension decision? Parents have the option to request a dispute resolution meeting, such as a conciliation conference or even mediation, during which you and the district would then work together to resolve the disagreement. Another option to address your concern is to file a complaint with the district. School boards are required to develop and adopt a discipline complaint process. This process must contain procedures for students, parents or guardians, and school staff to file a complaint and seek corrective action when they believe requirements of a Minnesota school discipline law, including the implementation of the local behavior and discipline policies, are not being implemented appropriately or are being discriminately applied. It is important to note that the Minnesota Department of Education does not have the authority to review or overturn a school's decision to suspend a student, but you can contact your school administrators or even the school board to request more information about the school's discipline policy, including how to file a discipline complaint with the district. Parents also have the option to request an expedited due process hearing before an administrative law judge to dispute a manifestation determination. A due process complaint must be filed with the Minnesota Department of Education within 10 days of the determination. More information about appeals can be found in Minnesota's Pupil Fair Dismissal Act, or the PFDA, document that will be included in the way that Jamie had shared with you prior to the beginning of the presentation today. And finally, if you believe your student has experienced discrimination based on a protected characteristic such as race, disability, or gender, you may file a complaint with the Minnesota Department of Human Rights or with the U.S. Department of Education Office of Civil Rights. Next slide, Jamie.
Okay, so that was a lot of factual information about processes and policies. So let's shift gears now and start thinking about how to advocate for your student with disabilities who's experiencing suspensions. So we as parents, just like teachers, want our children to learn how to successfully meet behavioral expectations at school, because this is part of learning to live and participate successfully at school and as a citizen of the world when they become adults. Our students therefore benefit from advocacy that focuses on exploring how the school will help our student who's struggling to learn and practice the skills they need to meet expectations. This doesn't mean that the school cannot impose disciplinary measures in keeping with required procedures and district rules, as we were talking about earlier. But when the school's response to a student with a disability who is struggling is focused solely or primarily on compliance rather than on supported skill building, undesired behaviors may actually increase. Research has shown that the implementation of punishment, especially when used inconsistently and in the absence of other positive strategies, is ineffective. The U.S. Office of Civil Rights states that modeling and reinforcing social behavior is an important part of a student's educational experience. Teaching behavioral expectations and providing supportive opportunities for practice are strategies that help students build the skills they need to meet expectations, not only at school, but for the transition to adulthood. The objective of the school to support students with disabilities experiencing behaviors is most effective when it's focused on consistent, predictable responses from staff and that supported skill building strategies we were just talking about, rather than primarily utilizing punishment such as suspension with the hope that it will lead to behavioral compliance. So let's jump into practical steps to advocate for your child who's experiencing suspensions. The first and most important way to empower your advocacy and your confidence when your child is experiencing disciplinary actions is to learn how to use the special education process for students on an IEP, or to understand the separate set of laws and rights governing 504 plans to advocate for your child. If your child is on an IEP, it's important to remember that you're an official IEP team member with protected rights under special education law. Like being a member of any other kind of team, your role also includes responsibilities. What does it mean to be an IEP team member? If you're a member of a soccer team, for example, you wouldn't just show up at the stadium and sit in the bleachers to watch the game. Your job is to participate as a player on that team, to prepare and practice for your work, to know the rules and regulations, and to communicate effectively with your team members. As an IEP team member, your advocacy effectiveness depends on your preparation and engagement with the process. We'll be talking more about how you can actively participate in a moment. If your child isn't yet on an IEP, but you're interested in exploring the option of special education services, learning about special education options, rights, and responsibilities will equip you for the process of pursuing evaluation. For students on an IEP, schools are obligated annually to provide you with a copy of a document called a Notice of Procedural Safeguards, which outlines your rights and options in the special education process. If your child has been on an IEP for a while, you will have seen this document numerous times. It usually accompanies your child's annual IEP proposal, and it's a document that many parents frankly skip reading. Don't skip it. Fair warning, it isn't a Harry Potter novel. It's not considered exciting reading by most of us as parents, but it is your pathway to learning about how you can address concerns and resolve disagreements with the school when they arise. If you'd like assistance reviewing and understanding your procedural safeguards, please contact PACER, and we'd be happy to help. Most PACER advocates are parents of kids with disabilities, so please know that we understand firsthand how difficult it is to try to learn about this process and your rights when your child is struggling, stress is high, and you already feel overwhelmed and possibly intimidated by encounters with the school. PACER was founded exactly for this purpose, to come alongside parents to help you learn about your rights and options as you navigate circumstances at school for your child with a disability. You aren't alone. I know I speak for all advocates at PACER when I say that this is what we love to do every day. We are here for you. Okay, additional strategies to advocate. Address concerns as soon as they arise. The first time your child experiences disciplinary action from the school, or when you first hear from school staff that they're struggling with behaviors, bring your concerns to your child's teacher, 504 coordinator, or IEP team. If your child is on an IEP, you can request a team meeting at any time during the school year. You don't have to wait for an annual IEP meeting to address concerns. Use meeting time to gather information about what may have contributed to your child's behavioral response, such as a social interaction with a peer, struggling to pay attention in class, following directions, participating in a non-preferred task, or taking a test. Ask staff to share with you any triggers they're noticing, as well as what works well for your child in school environments when they're successful. The sooner you can work together with school staff to understand areas where your child is struggling, the more likely it is that you and teachers will be able to identify why they're having difficulty and how to help, so that future disciplinary actions can be averted. Next, review your district's behavior policies and request clarification on expectations if needed. So these are the policies that Sarah was referring to earlier that are usually listed on your district's website, or you can request those from the principal. School behavior policies should be clearly understood by school staff, parents, and students. When expectations are broad or undefined, Inconsistent approaches to discipline can result. If the school has a rule about disruptive behavior or disrespectful communication, is there agreement on what that means? What exactly is considered respectful communication? Do staff and students know what kind of behavior qualifies as disruptive? How are these expectations communicated to students? If staff and students don't understand and agree on what the expectations are, arbitrary application of consequences can result. Unclear expectations and subjective application of disciplinary policies often raise the level of anxiety among teachers and students, which can lead to more negative behaviors. So take time to review your district's policies to ensure that they're clear and that the school is applying them fairly to your student. All right, keep a written record of incidents. Anytime you receive a message from the teacher or staff member regarding your child's behavior, keep a copy in your file. If a teacher calls or speaks to you at school about behavior, you can ask them to summarize what they've shared in an email, or you can send your own follow-up email to the staff member summarizing the incident they shared with you. Why is it so important to keep these written records? Tracking when and why your child is struggling helps you in the school to recognize patterns and gather data to help staff meet needs more effectively. If your child is suspended, including being sent home early, you want a written record of the number of days this occurs during the school year. Good record keeping helps keep everyone working together to support your child at school and accountable for providing them with an appropriate education. Organize documents. Preparing for effective advocacy includes organizing any documents that will help you in the school understand challenges that your child is experiencing, as well as what staff can do to support them effectively. It's helpful to have either a hard copy binder or an online file on a laptop that you can bring to meetings to access while you speak with school staff. Your file should include your child's educational documents, such as academic records, evaluation report, IEP, functional behavioral assessment data, behavior plan, IEP progress reports, incident reports, and any outside provider assessments and recommendations, such as from a therapist or a neuropsychologist that you feel will help support your advocacy points. So anything you want to be able to refer to in that meeting or anything that the district might refer to, if you can have that handy and ready in your binder or on your laptop, that will be helpful to empower your advocacy. So when it comes to outside provider diagnoses and assessments, I just want to clarify that districts aren't required to agree with those outside provider diagnoses or recommendations, but they must consider them. Those recommendations can help school staff understand your child's unique needs and strengths and come up with ideas to develop effective supports and services at school. Some educational records, such as your student's special education evaluation report or IEP, can feel overwhelming and confusing to interpret. Special education evaluation reports are usually sizable, often 20, 30 pages long. If you need help determining which documents you might want to include in your advocacy file or how to interpret any of your child's educational records, please reach out to PACER, where you'll be connected with an advocate who can help. So prepare for meetings. My kids with disabilities were in school at a time when easily accessible resources to help parents learn about the special education process and my rights were limited. I was a solo parent, already overwhelmed with trying to keep my family afloat. I didn't yet know about PACER because I didn't know my rights and options. I often felt intimidated, overwhelmed, and discouraged at school meetings. I didn't know which tools were at my disposal to advocate for what my kids needed at school. Learning about how and what to prepare will empower not only your advocacy, but will also help to relieve stress and increase your confidence when working with the school. Preparation for meetings includes organizing your documents, as we've already discussed, but also coming to the table with your own insights and ideas to propose to the school as they consider how to support your child. We'll talk more about this in a moment. Participate in problem solving. Your child's school team are experts in education. You are the expert in your child. No one knows your child as well as you do, and you're the only consistent advocate year after year throughout their educational career. Your input matters when problem solving with the school. Participate in conversations with your child's team with confidence that your ideas and insights bring value to the table that no one else can bring. When the school wants to know what works for your child or what contributes to their struggles, you're best suited to share ideas. Keep in mind that strategies that work well for your child in other environments outside of school may not be possible to implement at school in the same way. If you share an idea to support your student on an IEP at school and the school states that they can't do it, you have a few options. First, work with the team to creatively explore options. You might say, I understand that the approach we use at home may not be a strategy you can apply in the school environment. Can we take time to discuss ways we might adapt my strategy or come up with a new one that can be utilized in the school environment based on what we know works for my student? If the school seems uncertain about how to move forward to effectively support your child, you can ask, who else can we bring to the table that might have ideas to support my child? This could include a specialist from the district who could share new ideas, or someone the school might contract from outside the district. If you feel staff may not understand how to effectively support your child on an IEP, you can request additional training for staff related to your child's disability needs. Finally, if you disagree with what the school is proposing to address the needs of your child on an IEP, Minnesota offers effective dispute resolution meeting options designed to help parents and schools work together to resolve disagreements. And Sarah had referred to this earlier. Our PACER website and our YouTube page have a lot of resources available to explore what these options look like. And of course, you can reach out to PACER to be matched with an advocate who can walk you through what those options are and how to request them. And I want to encourage parents, if you're a parent of a kiddo on an IEP and you feel like your team is stuck or there's disagreement, these are options, these dispute resolution meeting options are utilized all the time. They're really intended to be a way to collaboratively and positively work through areas of disagreement with the school. So don't be afraid to contact PACER to talk about what those options are. All right, next slide, Jamie. So what are some additional considerations when it comes to advocacy? Assume your child's positive intent. Psychologist Ross Green is often quoted as saying, children do well if they can. If a student is struggling with behaviors, it's likely that they're not yet equipped to navigate circumstances and expectations. When we assume that children can't yet meet expectations, rather than assuming that they're intentionally refusing to follow rules, we open the door to understand why they're struggling, so we can explore ways to help them develop the skills they need to succeed. Consider patterns. When you think about how and why your child is struggling at school, consider the patterns you're observing. For example, is there a certain time of day that your student is more likely to struggle with behaviors? Often, students with a disability expend a lot of energy earlier in the day trying to focus or to keep up with expectations. So by afternoon, they're low on internal resources and struggle to regulate emotions or communicate their needs. You might think about certain class subjects in which your child frequently exhibits behaviors. If they struggle in math class, for example, might there be an unidentified learning disability that hasn't yet been considered? If your child has a hard time during unstructured times, such as hallway passing, lunch, or recess, might they have difficulty with transitions or social communication with peers, or with impulsiveness? If they struggle during school assemblies, might they be experiencing sensory overload? Patterns provide important clues for parents and staff to consider related to unrecognized or unmet needs that might require additional assessments or new strategies for support services or accommodations at school for your child. Request observations and data. All decisions about how the school supports your child with a disability are grounded in data. If your child has an IEP, it's the special education evaluation report that provides the primary set of data the school uses to propose support services, accommodations, and modifications in the IEP. When a student on an IEP is struggling at school, it can be helpful for parents to review the most recent special education evaluation summary report to ensure the district is using data that you feel is current, accurate, and comprehensive. The latter, comprehensive, meaning that assessments included in the evaluation address all areas of concern related to your child's ability to access their education. If you feel that the evaluation data is not current, accurate, or does not include all relevant areas of concern, you can request early reevaluation from your child's team. Assessments may also include a functional behavioral assessment, or FBA. The FBA looks at triggers in the school environment, why your child may be experiencing challenging behaviors. It looks at what may be reinforcing those behaviors and helps the school explore how they can plan positive supports and interventions through a positive behavior support plan to help your child meet expectations at school. Whether your child is on an IEP or not, you can request that the district conduct an FBA or to update an existing FBA if behaviors are intensifying or if new behaviors are emerging. If your child is not yet on an IEP and you feel that they may be a student with a disability in need of special instruction, you can request that your district conduct a full and comprehensive special education evaluation. It's important to know that a student can achieve good grades and still qualify for special education services if a disability is impacting their ability to access their education. The only way the school can determine if your child qualifies for an IEP is to conduct a special education evaluation. Our PACER website and YouTube page have resources to learn about how you can request evaluation from your school, or you can reach out to PACER to speak with an advocate for assistance. Document what you know works. We know that focusing on what a student does well and leveraging their strengths contributes to empowering them for success. This is true for all humans. When people notice what we do well and provide opportunity for us to utilize our strengths in a meaningful way, we feel encouraged. We want to do well. We see value in what we bring to others and to ourselves. When school staff have the tools and insights to understand who your student is and what works well to engage them with learning and positive relational connections, they're more likely to be able to develop an educational plan that facilitates strategies for supports and trustworthy co-regulation that works for your child. The process of recognizing, planning for, and utilizing a student's strengths when they're struggling is a powerful tool to support their progress. With my kiddo, I have a few examples. I don't think we'll have time to share many of them about how this was really helpful. When he was in first grade and he was in the special education resource room, he'd really been struggling at school. And a number of the kids in that room were a little younger than he was. And the pencil sharpener was close to where he was sitting. So, one of the kids brought a pencil over and didn't know how to work the sharpener. So my son helped him work the sharpener. And pretty soon, everyone in the class wanted my son to be the pencil sharpener for their pencil. And so there was sort of this role of strength where, okay, if you need your pencil sharpened, Luke is your helper. Pretty soon we found that the kids in the classroom were breaking their pencils intentionally because they wanted to run over to my son for help, which made him feel good, but they had to change that policy because they had lots of broken pencils and Luca was spending much of his day sharpening pencils. As he got older, he's definitely a technology kid. So one school sort of plugged him into being their tech consultant. If a teacher had a problem with technology, they could contact my son. And typically he could go and help them figure out what was wrong. So even though he was struggling significantly, we were able to explore ideas for how he could help. So one way you can work with the school to help staff understand your child's strengths and what works well to support them is what we at Pacer call a student snapshot. This is a brief summary of who your child is, what their strengths and interests are, and what staff can do and avoid to support your student effectively. It can be a written document. Pacer has a template you can use, or you can get creative and develop a brief slideshow or a graphic booklet. A student snapshot helps the team to remember that your child is a person capable of good and important contributions to the school and to the world. When talking with parents, I often use the phrase paint a picture when we're discussing how to share ideas with the school about what you believe they need to make progress. When you present clear examples to the team about what works and what doesn't work, you're helping them to clearly envision how they might apply your ideas at school. All right, gather your child's input. Our students are often our most underutilized resource for understanding the reasons they're struggling and how to help them. Every student's capacity to contribute their insights and ideas is different, of course, depending on their developmental level and disability factors. If your child is nonverbal, look at cues. You know them best, so you're able to identify what their cues mean in ways that school staff may not yet be able to do. If your student is unable to clearly verbalize their challenges and ideas for support due to their developmental level or the impact of their disability, it can still be beneficial to ask simple questions. You might say, I noticed that reading class is sometimes hard for you. You may not really know why it's hard, and that's okay. I want you to know that I've noticed and I'm thinking about how to help. If you have thoughts about what happens in class that makes it difficult, please know that you can share that with me. For students that do have the skills to verbalize their insights and ideas, it can still feel overwhelming to process and communicate their observations about what isn't working in certain school environments or their ideas for changes that might be helpful. I often recommend that parents break down conversations into small pieces to be discussed while you're engaging in an informal activity that you enjoy together. For example, if you and your child like to throw a ball back and forth or go fishing, create artwork, or make cookies together, you might use such an opportunity to ask, I know it was difficult when you got suspended for yelling at your teacher. I imagine that something must have occurred in class that was very stressful for you. Or maybe you've had lots of days of stress in that class and you finally couldn't deal with it anymore. I'd like to understand more about it so we can talk about how I and the school can help. When things are difficult, what's happening in the classroom? What are you working on? How is the teacher communicating? What's happening around you? You can ask your child for ideas for what might work well to support them more effectively. To gather ideas, you can ask, when you're in a school and things are working well for you, where are you, and how are you feeling supported and successful? What's happening in that environment? How are teachers talking with you when things are going well? How are they teaching? What is it in that class that's different in a good way? Bringing your child's own insights and ideas to the school or including them in some or parts of the advocacy process, if they're interested and able, can be a very effective strategy to help staff understand why they're struggling and how they can support them. Even if your child is unable to clearly verbalize insights or recommendations for what might help, when you ask for their thoughts, you're communicating that their self-advocacy matters, whether they can answer or not. Asking them also helps their brain to practice exploring problem solving and self-advocacy skills. You know your child best, so adjust these ideas to what you feel might work for them accordingly. All right, focus on, listen well and maintain a mindset of flexibility. We spoke earlier about how you are the expert in your child and school staff are experts in their education field. When we as parents approach advocacy discussions with the school, we benefit from the strengths and expertise of everyone at the table. Just as you have insights and recommendations regarding your child that the school may not have thought of, they too are able to come to discussions with data you may not yet be aware of and ideas or resources for support at school that you hadn't thought of yet. The process of collaborating with the school to support your student involves negotiation. That requires listening well to what the team has to share with you. It requires a flexible mindset that allows you to consider ideas that may be different from your own, and the opportunity for the team to try ideas and strategies to see if they work. So finally, focus on supported skill building. When you work with the school to develop supports and services for your child on an IEP, look for the school to focus on how they will help your student develop the skills they need to meet expectations and remain in school. If an IEP goal appears to be focused on compliance rather than skill building, you can ask, can you show me where the IEP outlines how you'll help my child learn and practice the skills needed to meet this goal? Where will this support occur? How often? Who will be providing it? So keep in mind, focus on skill building versus compliance. We want the IEP to equip our kids to learn successfully and meet expectations. So before we close out here, I just want to add in that teachers and district budgets are currently stretched thin. School staff are overworked and under-resourced. It's likely that you too, as a parent, are overworked and under-resourced in many areas of your life. This is a tough time for families of kids with disabilities and for schools. This means that when we come together at the educational planning table, tensions can sometimes exist even before the advocacy conversations begin. As a past teacher, I know that no one goes into education to become rich or famous, or because they want pats on the back and affirmation. Teachers chose to become educators because they care about your kids. That doesn't mean challenges won't occur in communication or that there won't be disagreements, sometimes pretty tough disagreements. But disagreement is a foundation on which we explore new ideas together and effectively problem solve. Minnesota special education protections for parents include a variety of structured dispute resolution meeting options that we referred to before, designed to help families of kids on an IEP and schools work collaboratively to resolve disagreements. So in spite of budgetary staffing and other challenges, districts still have an obligation to provide your child with disabilities with a free and appropriate public education. I encourage you to advocate boldly for what you feel your child needs to make progress at school, while entering into conversations with school staff by extending kindness and respect. Assume that school staff want to help, even when you experience disagreements. When tensions arise or relationships become strained, don't be afraid to ask for a restart with your team. This can be as simple as stating, we can all acknowledge that we've disagreed and experienced communication challenges, but I know we all have one common purpose, to develop a plan that will help my child succeed at school. Can we make a fresh start together and talk about how we can plan for effective communications going forward? Sometimes just calling out the problem and asking for a new start can reset the entire tone of the meeting. Even if you aren't convinced that it will make a difference, stating that you have faith in the common purpose of your child's team to work together effectively can have a surprisingly positive impact on communication dynamics. It is worth a try. Next slide.
Okay, so this slide has another QR code that if you have a device handy and you can take a picture of it, it will bring you right to our Ask an Advocate page, which is on our new website. So if you have questions about how to help your child get services, if you have questions about the special education process, or today, if this conversation really, it raises some questions for you about your own specific situation with your child related to suspensions or other areas of concern, please feel free to reach out to an advocate. There's a phone number, an email, and we are, like Jeannie has said a couple times before, most of the PACER advocates here are parents of children with disabilities, and we understand what you're experiencing and we're ready to help and available. Next slide.
So we are out of time for Q&A, and Sarah has been furiously working in the Q&A box while I've been talking about advocacy. So So I'm gonna turn my camera back on here. So thank you, Sarah, for all the work that you did on answering Q&A. And as Sarah just stated, definitely reach out to a PACER advocate if you have additional questions. This is a complicated topic, and we want to make sure that you have the answers that you need. Next slide, Jamie.
Okay, we value your feedback. We've shared a couple times that there is going to be a survey following this presentation today. And we really encourage you to take a little bit of time. I think it takes less than 5 minutes to complete the survey. We take this feedback really seriously. This presentation today is brand new in this subject matter. So your feedback will help us make changes to this presentation and other presentations as we add topics in the future based on what you share. So please include your thoughts and ideas in the survey that you'll receive following this presentation today. And I also see, Jeannie, lots of questions coming through. I encourage you to reach out to an advocate with specific questions. I've answered a few of them for you, and a couple of you I directed to the advocacy line just because they're specific questions.
Yes, and by way of encouragement to reach out, this is a common challenge that parents experience. So just know that the questions you have are probably being asked by other parents also. Be confident about stepping up and contacting PACER to see how we can help you. Also, be confident about asking your school for questions regarding data, regarding reviewing documents, any questions that you have about the process and your options. It is a time to definitely engage with school staff and with PACER as needed to figure out how we can really effectively and positively support our students who are experiencing suspension. So again, thank you so much for joining us today. We were delighted to have you here with us. Jamie, you can go to the last slide quickly where it has our contact information. Hopefully that will pop up here in a moment. Yep, there we go. We've got the PACER website on there, our phone number, email address, and if you check out YouTube and put PACER Center into our YouTube page, it should pull up all kinds of great resources. We've really added a lot this past year, including some very short trainings, in like 3 to 5 minutes, that can help give you a quick topic summary with visuals on specific subjects so it doesn't feel so overwhelming. I know these topics on school discipline especially are complex and can be really overwhelming. So please explore those options and remember that we're here to help. Thanks again for joining us today.
Bye. Thank
Bye.
you.
With that, I'll end today's webinar.